Emily Carter was not supposed to be in the Mafia boss's bedroom. And she definitely wasn't supposed to be standing there when Victor Romano walked in. The door slammed shut behind him. Emily's heart nearly stopped. She was holding a tray of crystal glasses when her hand suddenly slipped. Crash! The sound exploded through the silent penthouse suite. The expensive glass shattered across the marble floor. Emily's blood turned cold. Slowly, she lifted her head. Victor Romano was staring at her. The most dangerous man in New York City. A man whose name made politicians nervous and criminals disappear. Emily had worked in his mansion for 3 months, but she had never been this close to him before. Servants were trained to stay invisible. Clean the rooms. Deliver the food. Leave before the boss arrives. But tonight, everything had gone wrong. Victor Romano stepped forward slowly. The powerful Mafia boss looked exactly like the rumors described. Tall. Broad shoulders. Black tailored suit. Dark eyes that carried the cold weight of someone who had seen too much violence. The faint lines of tattoos were visible along his neck. Emily quickly dropped to her knees to clean the broken glass. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quickly, her hand shaking. "It won't happen again." Victor said nothing. The silence stretched across the room like tension before a storm. Then his voice finally came. Low. Calm. Dangerous. Stand up. Emily froze. Her stomach twisted with fear. Every servant knew that tone. That was not the voice of a man giving a simple order. It was the voice of someone deciding something important. Emily slowly stood up. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Victor Romano walked closer. Each step echoed across the marble floor. Emily could feel his presence behind her. Her pulse was racing so fast she thought she might faint. Then he said something that made her stomach drop. "Look at me." Emily swallowed hard. She slowly lifted her eyes. The moment their gazes met, Victor Romano's expression changed. His eyes widened slightly. For a brief second, the powerful Mafia boss looked shocked. Emily noticed it immediately. It confused her. Why would a man like Victor Romano look surprised by a maid? Victor continued staring at her. Longer than necessary. His intense gaze studied every detail of her face. Her eyes. Her lips. Her cheekbones. It felt like he was comparing her to something in his memory. Finally he spoke again. "What is your name?" Emily blinked. The question caught her completely off guard. "Emily. Emily Carter." Victor repeated it quietly. "Emily Carter." Something strange flickered across his face. It looked like disbelief. Then he suddenly walked toward a nearby desk and grabbed a small framed photograph. He returned and held the photo directly in front of her. "Look." Emily hesitated before looking. The moment she saw the picture, her breath caught. The woman in the photograph looked almost exactly like her. Same eyes. Same face. Same expression. Emily looked back at Victor in confusion. I don't understand." Victor's voice was quiet now. "That woman was someone I knew a long time ago." Emily looked at the picture again. "Who is she?" Victor didn't answer immediately. Instead he stared at Emily again. Long. Carefully. Then he said something that made a chill run through her body. "She died because of the Mafia." Emily felt her stomach tighten. Victor slowly placed the photograph back on the desk. Then he asked another question. "Where is your family from?" "Boston." "And your parents?" "They died when I was young." Victor's jaw tightened slightly. "Who raised you?" "My aunt." Victor nodded slowly. Then he asked one final question. "Did your parents ever tell you anything about your real family?" Emily frowned. "No, why?" Victor Romano stared at her for several seconds. Then he turned toward the giant window overlooking New York City. The lights of Manhattan stretched endlessly below them. Finally he spoke. "You shouldn't be working here as a maid." Emily blinked in confusion. "What?" Victor turned back toward her. His voice was calm, but the meaning behind his words felt heavy. "Because if I'm right about who you are." He stepped closer again. "Then you just walked into the most dangerous house in New York." Emily's heart pounded. What are you talking about? Victor Romano looked directly into her eyes and said the words that would change her life forever. You're not just a maid, Emily Carter. You're the last surviving connection to a mafia family that disappeared 20 years ago. And in that moment, Emily realized something terrifying. Her life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. Emily Carter could not move. Victor Romano's words echoed in her mind like a warning she couldn't escape. You're the last surviving connection to a mafia family that disappeared 20 years ago. The room suddenly felt smaller. The luxurious penthouse that once looked beautiful now felt like a trap. Emily shook her head slowly. That's impossible. Victor watched her carefully. His dark eyes remained calm, but there was a serious weight behind them. You're wrong, Emily continued nervously. I'm just a maid. I've always been a maid. My parents were normal people. Victor didn't argue. Instead, he walked back toward the desk and picked up the photograph again. He held it beside Emily's face. Look carefully. Emily hesitated, but she obeyed. The resemblance was undeniable. The woman in the photograph looked almost identical to her. Same dark eyes. Same cheekbones. Even the shape of their smile looked alike. Emily felt her chest tighten. Who is she? She asked again quietly. Victor placed the photo back down. Her name was Isabella Moretti. The name meant nothing to Emily. She shook her head. I've never heard of her. Victor leaned against the edge of the desk, crossing his arms as he studied her. That's not surprising. Why? Because someone clearly worked very hard to erase your past. Emily frowned. What are you talking about? Victor looked toward the large windows again, the glowing lights of New York stretching endlessly outside. For many years, he began slowly, the Moretti family controlled a large part of the mafia operations in this city. Emily's eyes widened slightly. Mafia? Yes. Victor's voice remained calm. They were powerful, wealthy, respected in the underworld. Emily felt a strange chill run through her. I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Victor turned toward her again. Because Isabella Moretti was the last known member of that family. Emily stared at him. And she died 20 years ago. The words hung in the air. Emily swallowed. So, how does that connect to me? Victor walked closer again. His expression was serious. Because you have her face. Emily shook her head again. That doesn't mean anything. Victor's gaze hardened slightly. No. But your name does. Emily blinked. My name? Yes. Victor spoke slowly, as if he was putting pieces of a puzzle together. Emily Carter. She nodded. That's the name I've had my whole life. Victor tilted his head slightly. Are you sure? Emily hesitated. My parents gave it to me. Your biological parents? Emily paused. She had never really thought about it. My aunt raised me, she admitted. Victor's expression sharpened immediately. Exactly. Emily's stomach tightened. What do you mean? Victor stepped closer again. Tell me something honestly. Emily nodded nervously. When your parents died, how old were you? 5. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. And you never questioned anything about your past? Emily crossed her arms defensively. I was a child. My aunt said my parents died in a car accident. Victor nodded slowly. Convenient. Emily frowned. What is that supposed to mean? Victor sighed quietly. For someone trying to hide a child from the mafia world, a car accident is a very useful story. Emily felt anger rising inside her. Are you saying my aunt lied to me? Victor didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked another question. Do you have any photographs of your parents? Emily thought for a moment. Only one. Victor's attention sharpened. Where is it? In my room. Victor nodded once. Bring it. Emily hesitated. Now. Yes. Emily looked uncertain. But something in Victor's tone told her this wasn't a request. It was an order. She quickly left the suite and walked down the long hallway toward the servants' quarters. Her mind was racing. None of this made sense. Mafia families. Hidden identities. A woman who looked exactly like her. It felt like a strange dream. After a few minutes, Emily returned with a small photograph she kept beside her bed. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed it to Victor. "This is my mother and father." Victor studied the photograph carefully. His expression slowly darkened. Emily noticed it immediately. "What is it?" she asked nervously. Victor looked up at her. "That man," he pointed to the photograph, "is not your father." Emily's heart skipped. "What?" Victor placed the photograph on the desk. "I've seen him before." Emily stared at him. "Where?" Victor's voice became quiet again. "In a meeting 20 years ago." Emily felt her breathing quicken. "What kind of meeting?" Victor's eyes locked onto hers. "A meeting between the most powerful mafia families in New York." Emily felt the room spin slightly. "That's impossible." Victor shook his head slowly. "No." He pointed at the photograph again. "That man was a bodyguard." Emily's stomach dropped. "A bodyguard?" "Yes." Victor crossed his arms again. "He worked for the Moretti family." Emily felt a wave of confusion crash over her. "But he raised me." Victor nodded. "Exactly." Emily stared at the photograph. Suddenly her childhood memories felt different. Stranger. Her father had always been protective. Extremely protective. He rarely allowed strangers near her. He had moved them several times while she was growing up. Emily had always thought he was just being careful. Now, it sounded like something else. Like he had been hiding her. Victor spoke again. "I think your parents didn't die in a car accident." Emily looked up slowly. "What do you think happened?" Victor's voice was serious. "I think they were protecting you." Emily felt fear rising in her chest. "From what?" Victor stepped closer. "From the Mafia." Emily's heart pounded loudly. "But why?" Victor's eyes hardened. "Because if someone discovered that Isabella Moretti had a child." He paused. "That child would immediately become a target." Emily felt cold. "You mean me?" Victor nodded slowly. "Yes." The room fell silent. For several seconds, Emily couldn't speak. Finally she whispered, "So, you think I'm the daughter of this woman?" Victor didn't hesitate. "I'm almost certain." Emily looked down at the photograph again. Her hands began shaking. Everything she believed about her life suddenly felt uncertain. "Why would anyone want to kill me?" she asked quietly. Victor's voice turned dark. "Because the Moretti family had a lot of enemies." Emily slowly lifted her eyes. "And now those enemies might discover that one of them survived." Victor's expression became firm. "And that is why." He paused. "Your life just became very dangerous." Emily felt a chill run through her entire body. Because in that moment she realized something terrifying. Working in the house of New York's most powerful mafia boss might be the only reason she was still alive. Emily Carter sat on the edge of the leather chair in Victor Romano's office, her hands tightly clasped together. Her entire life felt like it had been turned upside down in a single night. Just a few hours ago, she had been nothing more than a maid cleaning rooms inside a luxurious mansion. Now she was being told that her past had been hidden from her, and that powerful enemies might want her dead. Across the room, Victor Romano stood beside the large window overlooking the glowing skyline of New York City. His expression was serious as he stared down at the streets below. The city looked peaceful from this height. But Victor knew better. New York had two worlds. The one people saw during the day, and the one that existed in shadows. And if Emily Carter truly was connected to the Moretti family, those shadows would eventually start looking for her. Victor turned around slowly. Emily immediately looked up. Her voice was quiet. "So what happens now?" Victor studied her carefully for a moment. Then he walked toward the desk and pressed a small button on the intercom. "Marco," he said calmly. A voice responded immediately. "Yes, boss." "Come to my office." A few seconds later, the office door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped inside. Marco was one of Victor's most trusted guards. His sharp eyes briefly glanced at Emily before returning to Victor. "You called?" Victor nodded once. "From this moment forward, Miss Carter is under my protection." Marco's eyebrows lifted slightly. But he didn't question the order. "Yes, boss." Victor continued. I want 2 guards outside her room at all times. Marco nodded. Understood. And no one enters or leaves this house without my permission. Marco glanced toward Emily again, curiosity flickering in his eyes. But again, he asked no questions. That includes the staff. Yes. Marco nodded once more. I'll handle it. He left the room immediately. Emily stared at Victor in disbelief. You're putting guards outside my room. Victor's voice was calm. Yes. Why? Victor looked at her like the answer should be obvious. Because if what I suspect is true, you're no longer safe. Emily shook her head. This is crazy. Victor raised an eyebrow. You think the Mafia world is reasonable? Emily fell silent. Victor walked toward the desk again. Listen carefully, Emily. His tone was serious now. For 20 years, people believed the Moretti family line ended with Isabella. Emily swallowed. But now you've discovered that might not be true. Victor nodded. And if I figured it out? Emily finished the sentence quietly. Others will too. Victor nodded once. Yes. Emily's stomach tightened. But how? Victor leaned back against the desk. The Mafia world survives on information. Emily frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means secrets rarely stay hidden forever. Victor's eyes hardened slightly. If someone starts asking questions about you, it won't take long before the truth begins to surface. Emily looked down at her hands. I never asked for any of this. Victor's voice softened slightly. I know. For a moment, the room was quiet again. Emily finally asked the question that had been sitting heavily in her mind. Why are you helping me? Victor looked at her. For a brief moment, something thoughtful crossed his expression. Then he answered honestly. Because I knew your mother. Emily blinked. You knew Isabella Moretti? Victor nodded slowly. Yes. Emily leaned forward slightly. What was she like? Victor remained silent for a moment. His gaze drifted toward the photograph on the desk. She was strong, he said finally. Strong how? Victor's lips curved slightly into a faint smile. Strong enough to survive in a world controlled by dangerous men. Emily looked at the photograph again. And she died because of that world. Victor's expression darkened again. Yes. Emily felt a strange sadness in her chest. She had never met her real mother. And now she was learning that the woman had died in a violent world she didn't even understand. Victor noticed her expression. She protected her family until the very end. Emily whispered quietly. You really think she was my mother? Victor didn't hesitate. Yes. Emily exhaled slowly. Then she asked another question. What about my father? Victor shook his head. That part one don't know. Emily nodded slightly. Another mystery. Another piece of her past she might never fully understand. Suddenly there was a knock on the office door. Victor looked up. Come in. Marco entered again. Boss. What is it? Marco spoke quietly. One of the security teams reported something unusual. Victor's expression sharpened instantly. What? 2 vehicles have been parked outside the gate for the past 20 minutes. Emily's heart skipped. Victor's voice became cold. Who are they? Marco shook his head. They're not from our organization. Victor's jaw tightened. And they're just sitting there. Yes. Victor thought for a moment. Then he said calmly, double the guards at the entrance. Marco nodded. And keep watching them. Yes, boss. Marco turned to leave. But Victor stopped him. Marco. Marco looked back. Yes. If they try anything. Victor's voice dropped lower. Make sure they regret it. Marco gave a small nod. Understood. He left the office again. Emily felt fear rising in her chest. Do you think they're here because of me? Victor looked at her calmly. It's possible. Emily's voice trembled slightly. But you said no one knows about me. Victor nodded. They shouldn't. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. But someone might be starting to ask questions. Victor walked toward the window again. The dark cars were barely visible from this height. But he knew exactly how these situations worked. Enemies didn't rush. They watched. They waited. And when they were certain, they struck. Victor turned back toward Emily. His voice was calm but firm. From this moment forward, you stay inside this house. Emily frowned. For how long? Victor's answer was simple. Until I know who's looking for you. Emily slowly nodded. The reality of her situation was becoming clearer. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She wasn't just someone cleaning rooms in a rich man's house. She had become something else. Someone important. Someone valuable. Someone dangerous. And in the world Victor Romano ruled. That meant one thing. Her life had just become the center of a very dangerous game. And the worst part was, the enemies who wanted her might already be getting closer. The mansion had never felt this quiet before. Emily Carter stood near the large window in her room, staring down at the dimly lit driveway below. 2 security guards were now standing near the entrance gates, their dark suits visible under the soft glow of the outdoor lights. Victor Romano had kept his word. From the moment Marco reported the suspicious vehicles outside the gate, the entire mansion had shifted into a different atmosphere. More guards. More security. More tension. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. Just yesterday, she had been walking freely through the mansion halls, pushing her cleaning cart and thinking about ordinary things like laundry schedules and kitchen duties. Now guards were stationed outside her door. And Victor Romano himself had ordered that she remain inside the house. It still didn't feel real. A quiet knock came at her door. Emily turned. Come in. The door opened and Victor Romano stepped inside. His presence filled the room instantly. Even without speaking, he carried the same powerful aura that made people obey him without question. Emily noticed something different in his expression tonight. He looked thoughtful. Almost concerned. Are you all right? He asked. Emily gave a small shrug. I'm trying to understand everything. Victor nodded slowly. That's expected. Emily walked toward the chair near the bed and sat down. This is all happening too fast. Victor remained standing near the door. For years, you believed you were someone else, he said calmly. Learning the truth rarely happens slowly. Emily sighed quietly. I still don't understand why someone would hide my identity for so long. Victor walked a few steps further into the room. Your parents probably believed they were protecting you. Emily looked up at him. From the Mafia. Victor nodded. Yes. Emily shook her head slowly. But if they wanted to protect me, why did they leave me in a world where I had no idea who I was? Victor answered carefully. Because sometimes ignorance is the best protection. Emily frowned slightly. That doesn't make sense. Victor leaned lightly against the wall. If you had known the truth about your family, you might have tried to look for answers. Emily thought about that. And slowly realized he might be right. If she had known about a hidden Mafia past, she might have searched for information. And that search might have attracted dangerous attention. Emily exhaled slowly. So they wanted me to live a normal life. Victor nodded. Exactly. Emily glanced toward the door where the guard stood outside. Well, that normal life didn't last very long. Victor allowed a faint smile. No. For a moment, silence filled the room again. Emily studied him. You're not surprised by any of this. Victor shook his head slightly. In my world, surprises happen every day. Emily hesitated. Then she asked something that had been sitting in her mind. Why are you really helping me? Victor's expression remained calm. I already told you. You knew my mother. Yes. Emily shook her head slightly. That can't be the only reason. Victor didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked slowly toward the window. He stood beside her and looked out at the city lights. Your mother saved my life once. Emily's eyes widened. She did. Victor nodded. Many years ago. Emily leaned forward slightly. What happened? Victor's voice grew quieter. There was an ambush during a meeting between several families. Emily listened carefully. Your mother realized what was about to happen before anyone else did. Victor paused briefly. She warned me seconds before the shooting started. Emily felt a chill. And that saved you? Victor nodded. Yes. Emily looked at the photograph on the desk beside the bed. So you owe her. Victor's voice was firm. Yes. Emily looked back at him. And now you're protecting me because of that. Victor nodded once. That is part of the reason. Emily noticed the way he said it. Part. Victor turned toward her. You are also important for another reason. Emily frowned slightly. What reason? Victor's voice became serious again. If the Moretti bloodline truly survived. He paused. Then you represent something powerful. Emily blinked. What do you mean? Victor crossed his arms. The Mafia world respects bloodlines. Emily shook her head. I don't want anything to do with that world. Victor nodded. I know. Emily stood up and walked toward the window again. I just want my life back. Victor's voice softened slightly. That may not be possible anymore. Emily turned toward him. Why? Victor answered honestly. Because now that your existence is known, people will start asking questions. Emily felt her chest tighten. And when they discover the truth. Victor finished quietly. They will see you as the last heir of a powerful family. Emily stared at him. I don't want power. Victor gave a small nod. Unfortunately, power doesn't always ask permission. Emily fell silent again. She looked out over the glowing city. New York suddenly looked very different to her. Not like the place she had been living quietly for years, but like a battlefield she had never realized existed. Victor walked toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. Get some rest tonight. Emily looked at him. Do you think those men outside will come back? Victor's expression turned serious again. Probably. Emily felt a chill run through her. And what happens if they do? Victor opened the door. Then he answered calmly. They'll learn the same lesson everyone else eventually learns. Emily waited. Victor Romano's eyes hardened slightly as he finished the sentence. That no one touches what belongs to me. The door closed behind him. Emily stood silently in the room. Those words echoed in her mind. What belongs to me? She wasn't sure whether those words should make her feel safe, or even more afraid. But one thing was certain. Her life as a quiet maid was over. The hidden truth about her family had pulled her into a dangerous world. A world controlled by powerful men. And now she was standing directly in the center of it. Emily Carter had walked into the mansion as a maid. But whether she wanted it or not, she was about to become something far more important.